back to the program. You know what they say about opportunity? Success is where preparation and opportunity meet. And Channels Television proudly has started that process where opportunity is given to young Nigerians to establish themselves through the value of social enterprise as a force for change and self-upliftment. So we're going to be talking about that force for good, which is Fund It Forward, Channels Television's social enterprise, business social enterprise show. So joining us to have this discussion this morning is Mr. Neil Oyinekon. He's a series producer of Fund It Forward. And we also have, for the first time on the show, my namesake, Bukola Oloyede, who is the senior producer, Fund It Forward. They join us here in our Lagos studio. Good morning and welcome,
good morning.
Lady and gentleman.
Good morning.
It's good to have you on the show. So I'm going to start with you, Bukola, not because you're my namesake, by the way.
That's okay. I think you can be biased.
Yes, I can. So, season 2. First of all, tell us about the recruitment process before the season 2 kicked off and how it is reflective. I know that's one of the values of Fund It Forward, of all of the geopolitical zones of the country. Yeah.
Well, of course, it's very important to be inclusive. So the recruitment process is open to all geopolitical zones because, you know, we don't want to keep things only in Lagos, for instance. And there are so many other businesses and social entrepreneurs that are outside of Lagos State, at least, that also need to be funded forward. The recruitment process is quite thorough and severe. They get to send the entries, talk about their businesses, and they go through like a selection process where we then whittle down to who we believe is the businesses are viable, their ideas are viable, they presented themselves in a very professional way. They're sending a video entry as well. So we hear the way that they speak, we hear the way that they present, we see their environment in some cases, and I think they also have a chance, I mean, it's a short video, but they have a chance to at least present a bit of their business and the environment within which they work. So once we have a good number of entries, I think this year we had over 1,000 entries from across the country. We then start to whittle down, you know, and then it becomes what are we looking for here? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business. It's a TV show, and so it's not just about the showbiz, but it's also you want to be able to have people on the show who can present themselves. Because in the business world, you're going to have to face very strong opposition. You're going to have to face people who you have to ask for money, you have to ask for help, and if you can't present yourself in that way, you're out. You know, so it's all those different criteria that play into how we choose or select the people that are going to be on the show. And then once we've gotten a reasonable number that we can work with, we then begin to have interviews with them. So it goes a little bit deeper into who they are, what they're about, and starts to whittle down and look at the fine print of what their business model actually is. For some people, it's just an idea in phase. For some people, they've actually already started and they just need the funds, you know, and the help to move forward. So those are some of the criteria that we look into. So, go ahead, Jeff.
Let me bring it to the man. We've got time. She made a comment which I want to piggyback on, articulating your thoughts. Wouldn't that naturally discriminate against people who are not quite eloquent, but they have a viable idea? How do you navigate that part as a reality TV show? We understand the position of being able to present in boardrooms and push forward their ideas, but at the end of the day, certain people may not be good in that area, but you can't deny the fact that they know exactly what they are doing. How do you navigate that part?
Well, I think based on our experience, having done it last season, what we did establish is, you know, there are two basic tenets, you know, when you want to evaluate a business's strength, and it's the idea itself and then the person. I mean, venture capitalists tend to say that, you know, they invest in people. But, you know, on the fundamental stage of businesses, you find out that it's actually the business that's more important. So when we're selecting, in as much as it's important to be eloquent, it's also pertinent that the business is viable enough, you know, for presentation. Because the filter that Fund It Forward puts these young CEOs through has various steps that help them refine their ability. And that goes from presentation to service, delivery, finding funds, speaking to investors. And through that cycle, even if you come in as somebody who's not, a conversationalist, like yourselves, you would get the help you need through the mentorship, through the master classes, through the real world activities that they're put through to be able to sort of improve yourself. So if you look at the span of shortlisted people, you'd find out that even those who come from the north, are present. And as we saw last year, we had this fantastic girl from Kogi who was as quiet as a mouse, but was able to make it through to the final against people who could literally, talk the house down. So I think it's half and half, and I think we're going to be able to practice what we're preaching here through the second season, because we've ended up with an interesting bunch of young socialpreneurs. But more interestingly, we begin to sort of see the verve, which is exciting, because contrary to popular belief, you do have a lot of young people in this country who do not see the option of sort of leaving the country, but they've decided basically to stay here and fight things through. And I think that's something we should,
Yeah, and that seems enviable as a value, coming out of funding forward, of staying back to build. And I like, that new lexicon into business, socialpreneurs. Now let's tell us about what to expect for season 2 of Funding Forward. Bukola?
What to expect? Look, these are real people with real businesses, with real ideas, with real dreams. And so that's what we put forward before anything else, before the showbiz. I think it's been very clear, even from season 1, that we wanted to focus on the real stories and people leaving with, real experiences, that they came into this program, they came into the show, they brought their businesses, and they left with something. Whether they went back with the money or not, it's really not the issue. So I just want to be clear that this is about the people, it's about the business, and it's about their dream. Having said that, I think we can expect some really interesting stories. Yeah, because the people themselves they're quite diverse. They're sure of themselves. And it's also the kind of program, like you said, where as you get, deeper into it, you kind of figure out, you're able to see who can stand the test of time, who's gonna be standing at who's gonna survive at the end of the day. It's like survival of the fittest. But I think you can expect some really interesting stories, and expect to be invested in the people. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm looking at the screen. I was counting the number of ladies and guys to be sure there's that gender balance. God, don't play with gender balance here at Channels TV, and that has to be reflected. And I'm happy it's clearly reflected on this. And so let's talk about what tax you put them through. And we're going to talk about, let's not forget to tell the people when it airs, and more importantly, how much they stand to make the winner.
Yes.
That money is very important in this economy. So let's talk about what kind of tax do they undergo.
Okay, so
to test strength.
Funding Forward basically is built on top of a business filter. And, I must say, it's quite, an applauding initiative, which was developed by the executive producer of the show, Zeni Momo. She came up with a great concept, which we're able to build into something that is now a TV series. The building blocks of Fund It Forward will start with a pitch enterprise, which is what you see in episode 1, because that's the fundamentals of any business. Is it even viable? Because, ideas,
are not in short supply.
Never. But they also don't keep. You really have to do
business,
something. And when they go through that particular cycle, their masterclasses, mentorship, you get some of the top agencies in the country to come into the business hub which I think we should also talk about, to coach them through, look through their business deck, help them package it together before at the end of a week cycle, the expert judges will come around to do their assessment. They move from things like that to looking into their supply side validation of their business. Okay, you've got a great idea, so how you're going to keep it running, even if you have the money to do it. Then you move to another week whereby you look at demand side validation. These are all key things to sort of stress test the idea itself. And then you go into how do you get funding? How do you pitch to investors? And then you do your prototype, whereby you're actually demonstrating your business as it will be in the real world. And at the end of that, the final stage is when you'd carry everything that you've been able to sort of bring together across the entire session and present, to a live audience. And from there, we're able to pick
a winner.
So it's not just a business proposal that is eligible, but also an established business that needs, venture capital to shore up. Are those the categories of businesses that qualify? Idea and business
product.
that is, and product.
I mean, as you will see in the show, we have, startups, and then we have, business that already are up and running. I think the critical thing is to be able to somehow, educate millions of young CEOs out there. It's not just about the 12 people on the show. It's about the millions of people who can use it to understand where they are, what they need to do, and how they can also grow their businesses.
Let's not forget about the prize money. That's very important.
People love money.
Well, the prize money, it's something which we don't want to be their focus, because when your business is successful, that money, becomes, so little to your overall gain. You'll make more of it. But as an incentive and a driver, the grand finale has 3 winners. Channels has decided it should not be a winner take all. There should be a fair spread. And you have 30 million, 15 million, and 10 million, to all the 3 finalists.
So what are the other perks for just participating in the program?
Okay, the other things that are also baked into
5 million.
the initiative.
I don't pay money.
But there are things that are more valuable than the cash. And this is, to do with things like the support mechanism, post-show that has been put in place by the network. It allows them a year-round access, to strategic partners like Leap Africa, Alethea Capital, and the CC Hub, who have various programs that they basically have, direct access to. Their mentors, who are also experts on the show, are also assisting them. They're available around the year to also help them guide their business. And there's also access to certain alternative funding, which they're fast-tracked to be able to access, as we witnessed via last year's winners. A lot of them have gone, to demonstrate that, the post-show mechanism that supports their businesses is almost more viable, than, the on-air
And being on show.
initiative.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so as we coast home now, I would like to know when it airs, and talk to us also, as you do that, about that mechanism, I believe, that you have in place to monitor past winners of the show to see how well they're doing and how they've deployed the funds that they won. Bukola.
Okay, I'll talk about the airing, and then he can talk about the post mechanism. It airs on Sundays on Channels Television by 7 p.m. 7 p.m.
It's not exclusively.
Exclusively on Channels Television. Exclusively on Channels Television, 7 p.m. every Sunday. The first episode already went to air this Sunday that just passed, so be expecting episode 2. It's going to be exciting.
And then the reruns on Wednesday.
And then reruns on Wednesdays as well. Yeah,
2 p.m. So rerun on Wednesday, 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay. So how is the Abacha man doing?
Well, the interesting thing about, an idea like this is, at some point, it's out of your hands. It will test itself. And people like Valentine, who won last year, have sort of gone on to grow their business. He's grown his distribution network. We've heard that he's even on the international leg of pushing his product. But more interestingly, the second and the third, no, the first and second runner-up, Thara and Agrify, have also been able to sort of, grow leaps and bounds, because Thara has been able to sort of get some international fellowship, and she's got some international grants based on her featuring on Fund It Forward last year. And we hear that Dell's is increasing his own business also. So the reality is the proof will be in the finalists.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
At the end
and
of
that's
the
a
day.
fine place to leave it. I'd like to thank you very much for coming on the show. We've been talking with Mr. Neil Oyeneko, series producer, Fund It Forward, and we've also had the pleasure of having Bukola Oloyede, a senior producer, Fund It Forward, Lagos. We hope that, giving good reason for inspiration for those coming into season 3.
Fund It Forward Global.
Yeah.
We're global.
We're global.
We're global.
Yes, we
We're
are.
global.
Because Channel Television is
We're
ubiquitous.
global. Thank you,
Thank you
gentlemen.
so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll take a break now. When we return, we're turning our attention on the arts and entertainment. Stay with us. We'll be right back.